Previously on the Rubin Report.
Why?
Anywhere. Why?
There's nothing behind her eyes.
Terrorists and what? Oh, beat the shit out of him now.
I thought they're tolerant and nice. There are 42 hospices. You'd have to be in The Walking Dead blowing zombies' brains out and then sending them to hospice. What's up, people? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is January 29th, 2026. We are live streaming on Rumble, on Locals, on YouTube. Share, subscribe, tap that notification bell. We have a tremendous program for you today. Lots of catch-up. Don't worry. We're not just doing the Minnesota craziness. Yes, there's a lot of it. I promise you. And we'll have the fallout of someone spraying apple cider vinegar on Ilhan Omar. But we're also going to do a bit on Marco Rubio. That's funny. Marco Rubio. They could call him Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio at a Senate hearing yesterday regarding everything we're doing as it pertains to Venezuela and potentially Cuba, which he might have an interest in. And we're going to get you caught up on a whole bunch more. Second half of the show is a RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A. Joseph is at the computer right there, which I'm told we have some sort of wireless internet in the studio here. So the internet is literally just floating around me right now. And if you want to get questions to him on the fly, RubinReport.locals.com. And we're going to try to keep the show real tight today because I got a major situation this afternoon that I got to take care of. So let's dive right in. As I said, Marco Rubio was at a Senate hearing yesterday, basically just being grilled on kind of all the things that he is doing as Secretary of State, most of it having to do with the Venezuela operation last month, where we went in and in 90 minutes got Nicolás Maduro out, what they say was the elected leader of Venezuela, although we know it really wasn't an election, someone who was a narco-terrorist and drug trafficker. He was in charge of these boats and the entire drug operation that was not only coming to our shores, but really across the Western Hemisphere. Anyway, here is Rubio, who has just, I always say, you look at this all-star list of people that Trump has in the cabinet, and Rubio consistently, if you can move these people around, okay, so maybe Noam is 3 on this day and 6 on this day, or Tulsi's here, or Bobby's 4 and then 8. It's like Rubio has consistently been number 1, in my opinion. And here he is just calmly and cleanly explaining why we did the Venezuela operation.
Let me just say this. What is our goal going in? We had in our hemisphere a regime operated by an indicted narco trafficker that became a base of operation for virtually every competitor, adversary, and enemy in the world. It was, for Iran, their primary spot of operation in the Western Hemisphere was Venezuela. For Russia, their primary base of operation in the Western Hemisphere, along Cuba and Nicaragua, was Venezuela. In the case of China, China was receiving oil at a huge, about $20 a barrel discount. And they weren't even paying money for it. It was being used to pay down debt that they were owed. This is the oil of the people of Venezuela, and it was being given to the Chinese as barter at a 20%, at a $20 discount per barrel in some cases. And so you had basically 3 of our primary opponents in the world operating from our hemisphere from that spot. And now the question becomes what happens moving forward. As I've described to you in previous settings and in individual conversations, we had 3 objectives here. The final, I'll work it backwards because the end state here is we want to reach a phase of transition where we are left with a friendly, stable, prosperous Venezuela.
All right, in some sense, I don't have to overanalyze it. We could throw up an image of the Western Hemisphere because, well, there's the globe. That's the world, okay? And in real life, it's a sphere and it's floating in space and okay, but here's a flat version of it. We are in the Western Hemisphere. So we're in the upper, you could call it the upper Western Hemisphere, unless you're looking at it upside down, but okay, fine. And what he is laying out there is that we are going to protect our neighborhood. And that actually is America first, because if we only protected our borders and bad guys were encroaching on our borders, well, then it would often be too late. Do you want to protect our country when rockets are flying in or terrorists are at our borders or when all the drugs have come in or anything else? So obviously, Venezuela is at the top of South America over there, and Greenland obviously is above Canada over there. And you could see why these are strategically important things that we should have some involvement in. We are the last superpower on Earth, and we are allowed to police our sector of the world as we wish. The other thing is, you watch Rubio as he just calmly lays these things out and he gets to all the bullet points and everything else, is just try to compare him to anyone that was in the Biden administration, this ridiculous clown car of people who never laid out what proper policy was, who always talked about, the identity politics or woke version of this or that, and how many lesbians we have doing this job and whatever. And it's like, okay, that's just great. That's just great. We've got lesbians digging dikes in, downtown, whatever. But here we are exerting our power again. America is back. It is as simple as that. Anyway, they got into a couple interesting questions here. I'm going to show you one particular one by Rand Paul, who takes the more libertarian, sort of an isolationist position on all this stuff. But first, here's Rubio explaining why we could not make a deal with Rubio. We were the clock had run out on that.
We made multiple attempts to get Maduro to leave voluntarily. And to avoid all of this, because we understood that he was an impediment to progress. You couldn't make a deal with this guy. Okay? This guy has made multiple deals. He's broken every one of them. As a point of example, he made a deal with the Biden administration, and here was the deal that he made. It was a bad deal. We knew he wouldn't keep it. He made the following deal. Pardon my nephews, his nephews, who are convicted narco traffickers, convicted already and serving time in jail. Pardon them. Pardon and release Alex Saab, who was his money man, his bag man, primarily in charge of the portfolio with Iran. Release these people. He, in turn, agreed to release some political prisoners, which he did. Many of them were subsequently exiled or rearrested, and that he would hold free and fair elections, which he did not. What he wanted to do was tap us along and buy 3 years of time until he could deal with a new administration that he thought may be more favorable, et cetera.
Right. So look, I know this isn't like the sexiest topic in the world, but it is, I think, impressive and important to note that the Secretary of State that we have right now can calmly explain why we are doing what we are doing, that this was not someone we could work with. And let's not forget, what happened 5 days before the Maduro operation in Venezuela? Maduro literally was like, Trump, come and get me. And Rubio's point, this is someone that we were trying to negotiate with, obviously that's true. It's Donald Trump. Do you think he gave the guy probably 5-10 chances first to negotiate before we did that? The obvious answer is yes. Anyway, I think this is the most interesting clip out of the entire hearing, because Rand Paul, a guy who I like a lot, he's been on the show dozens and dozens of times. I've interviewed him in person many times. I am very, very sympathetic to a lot of the libertarian positions and how out of control government has gotten and all of those things. He takes the isolationist approach on these things, or at least he wants everything to go through the traditional systems of government, meaning if we're going to do any military operation, it should go through Congress. Now, that's not really how various presidents, virtually every president in the last 4 decades, Democrat or Republican, has done things. Barack Obama went into Libya with a kinetic military action, didn't ask anybody. We completely destroyed the country. Gaddafi's gone, and now it's a failed state. That's what he did. G.W. Bush actually got congressional authority to go into Iraq. Most people don't think that was a great idea. But generally speaking, President Barack Obama also bombing people in Syria, including killing an American citizen. Anyway, Rand Paul, I think, is taking a principled position when he makes the argument that this should have gone through the proper channels, and listen to Rubio's counter on that. And this is what good political debate actually is.
But I think we're in violation of both the spirit and the law of the Constitution by bombing a capital, blockading a country, and removing elected officials. And we certainly wouldn't tolerate it, nor would I if someone did it to us.
Well, we didn't remove an elected official. We removed someone who was not elected, and it was actually an indicted drug trafficker in the United States, and their system.
Our laws, indicted under our laws. Look, Bolsonaro says that Da Silva is not really the president of Brazil. Our president said Biden wasn't really the president. Hillary Clinton said in 2016 Trump wasn't the president. So you have these arguments, and I agree with you. It probably was, and most likely was, most assuredly was a bad election. He wasn't really elected. But at the same time, if that's our predicate, and you don't have to come to us because it's a drug bust, we're just removing somebody, you can see where it leads to, and it leads to chaos.
Okay, so this is a really good exchange, and this is the part of politics. You know, politics can be very annoying, and it's just about show and everything else. But here you have two guys actually making philosophical points. Rand Paul's philosophical point is, what right do we have to go to another country and do whatever we want? And not only that, but if we are going to do it, do we have to get congressional authorization and everything else? Again, I'm very sympathetic to that argument. Rubio's argument is, and there's an extended version of it, but his argument basically is, well, first off, this guy wasn't elected. It was completely fraudulent. In essence, he was already at war with the United States by flooding us with drugs, by working with Iran, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what healthy political disagreement and debate is about. And they are largely on the same side of things as Republicans, even though I think they have wide differences when it comes to foreign policy and everything else. I would say this is also kind of where the libertarian mindset kind of works in theory, but not in reality, meaning most people in theory are just kind of live and let live and all of those things. Like, that is how we all kind of want to be. But politics is a game of power, and you have to know how to appropriately use it. So I don't see Trump abusing power right now by doing what we're doing. I see him selectively using it to better the United States. That's not a dismissal of what Rand Paul was saying right there. Now we'll jump over to a Democrat who also got a chance to question Rubio. Cory Booker, very concerned about some of the Venezuelans who might now be going back to Venezuela.
We have an administration that has said very clearly that they're not only going to be lifting temporary protective status for Venezuelans living in the U.S., but instead of protecting longtime American residents, they are, quote, the administration is putting people back on deportation flights and sending them into that madness. Does that make sense to you?
Well, first of all, the travel advisories for American citizens traveling there and the threats posed to Americans, what you're describing is...
Why lift temporary protected status?
Well, the problem with temporary protective status was it was granted to so many people in such a vast numbers so quickly without proper vetting by the previous administration that there's a real concern that there were gang members that had received TPS simply because of the nation they came from and the time in which they came. It became so big and so massive. The overwhelming majority of Venezuelans are not members of Trained at Agua, but there were Trained at Agua and other criminal elements embedded in the TPS system. And the numbers were so large that the administration felt it had to cancel the program in order to appropriately vet it through on the individual cases.
Excuse me.
Okay, so as always, Cory Booker, he's a Democrat, so he's not that concerned with Americans, right? So he's not that concerned that Tren de Aragua terrorists or gang members or fentanyl dealers, et cetera, are here, and that basically they took advantage of this TPS system. That basically offered, it was mostly people from Venezuela, like special protections to get into this country and then stay here at least temporarily. Now we're reversing some of that because hopefully things in Venezuela are calming down. And as Rubio points out, I'm shocked. I'm shocked. There were all sorts of bad people that took advantage of these programs. Now, this is, I found particularly interesting to tie this all together here. This is Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin on Fox. This is after the testimony right there, where it got pretty heated, you know, Democrats just relentlessly going after Rubio and trying to make it seem like this was all unconstitutional and Trump's a warmonger and all of the usual stuff. And here's Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma explaining that behind closed doors, when this was all going down, little different on the Democrat side.
We should be commending him. Can I say one more thing, Liz, too? When Secretary Rubio gave his testimony in a classified setting, every one of these Democrats clapped, literally clapped after the briefing because of the extraordinary job our men and women in the IC, the intelligence community, and within DOW, Department of War, did on removing this dictator from our hemisphere.
And doesn't that read as true to you? And by the way, for all of the people that a month ago were like, oh my God, it's regime change and this is going to turn into Iraq and everything else, like, you can go back and watch our shows from a month ago. What was I saying? Like, we did it quickly. There isn't the religious and sectarian strife there. We still are going to have to figure out things on the ground there. There's still going to have to be, you know, in some sense, it's not nation building, but there's going to have to be industrial building. We're going to have to figure out how American companies and others can now work to deal with the Venezuelan oil and everything. And we are going to have to push back a little bit on what's going on with Iran and Russia there and all of those things. But it's been pretty freaking smooth so far. Actually, I do want to show you one other thing from the hearing. I thought this was great. So there's Hawaii Senator. He's just kind of another generic leftist Democrat, Brian Schatz. And he asks Rubio, who is from Cuba. Well, his parents, first generation from Cuba. Rubio has told his story many times. You know, his parents working in a kitchen cleaning dishes, and that's kind of where he grew up when he was 5 years old, in the back of the kitchen and all that. And the fact that he's now become not only a senator but Secretary of State, I mean, it is the most beautiful American dream that anyone can imagine. But here's Schatz asking Rubio if Cuba is going to be next.
Will you make a public commitment today to rule out U.S. regime change in Cuba?
Regime change?
Yes.
Oh, no, I think we would love to see the regime there change. We would like to, that doesn't mean that we're going to make a change, but we would love to see it change. There's no doubt about the fact that it would be of great benefit to the United States if Cuba was no longer governed by an autocratic regime.
I'm not asking you whether we would prefer a different kind of government. I'm asking whether you are trying to precipitate the fall of the current regime.
Yeah, but that's statutory. The Helms-Burton Act, the U.S. embargo on Cuba is codified. It was codified in law, and it requires regime change in order for us to lift the embargo.
Okay.
He's just good. Like, he actually knows what he's talking about. He knows the laws that he's referencing. And of course, we would prefer that there be some sort of internal regime change in Cuba. But imagine, I don't know what's going on here, but imagine if we could do something kind of similar to what happened in Venezuela to Cuba. I live in Miami right here. This is Little Havana. I mean, quite literally, just a couple miles away is Little Havana. And I can promise you, if the regime in Cuba fell, the streets would be overflowing with mojitos. Okay, that's what would be going on here, because the Cuban people, especially the people who left Cuba, and again, most of them came to Miami. Watch Scarface if you haven't seen it. I watched it again like 2 months ago. It's just great. They know what oppression is, and they know what freedom is. And I would say to the Democrats, why don't you like it when people are free, either here in the United States or in other countries? We put this together. I thought this was just perfect. Here's a picture of Marco Rubio once he realizes that he is going to have to run Cuba. Is that Marco Rubio? Marco Cubio? That's what I'm calling him from now on. I can't do it. Anyway, I thought this was interesting on Polymarket. You know, they check the betting odds right now. And Miguel Diaz-Canel out as leader of Cuba. 28% say he'll be out by June 30th of this year. So that's 5 months from now. That jumps to almost 60% by the end of the year. So we shall see. All right, let's shift topics altogether. Yesterday, we showed you some crazy person, and you should not do this, although it kind of felt staged to me, but you should not attack public people or private people. You shouldn't shoot them. You shouldn't punch them. You shouldn't spray apple cider vinegar on them. That's just a general thing. Don't attack these people. Make fun of them, mock them, all of those things. You know, counter their ideas with better ideas. But Ilhan Omar did get sprayed with apple cider vinegar. For some reason, that guy who looked shady as shit was sitting in the first seat right next to her. And then she didn't even try to clean herself off. She just, like, the whole thing just reeked, no pun intended, of something strange. Anyway, she sat down with that Muppet guy over on I'm calling it MSNBC because I can't do this other thing.
At that moment, I remember feeling like someone was saying something close to me. And I looked up, and there was a man plunging towards me. And there was like some liquid thing that I, at the moment, thought it was like a spit. And so I, instinctively tried to punch him, basically, for trying to spit on me.
You thought he was spitting on you?
Yes. I was raised with 3 brothers who are older than me, and so, you learn that maybe taking the first punch when somebody is bigger than you yields you better results.
Not only was Ilhan raised with 3 brothers, she married one of them. Here's the marriage certificate. Yes, she married one of her brothers in order to break federal immigration law. She should be denaturalized and deported. That's not a reason to spray apple cider vinegar on her, but she should be booted. Of course, they never let a tragedy go to waste. And this from Breaking 911, Representative Ilhan Omar is now using last night's quote-unquote attack to raise money. It's interesting that she needs more of your money, because we did cover earlier in the week that basically her fortune went from about 100 grand when she came into office to about $30 million, including a fake winery that isn't selling any wine and a bunch of other shell companies and everything else. But yes, she is using this to make it seem like she is the number one victim and Donald Trump is trying to kill her, and also that he has dementia or something. Go.
That I wouldn't be where I am at today, having to pay for security, having the government to think about providing me security if Donald Trump wasn't in office and if he wasn't so obsessed with me. It is ironic that just last night he was on stage moments before I was attacked talking about me. And then when asked about my attack, he said, I don't think about her. Does he not remember? Is he suffering from dementia?
It's funny that they'll laugh about dementia right now. Like, you guys were all part of the greatest scandal in American political history, which was the 4 years of AutoPen. You didn't want to talk about dementia then. But yes, we do talk about you, Ilhan Omar, because you are an anti-American zealot who has been profoundly connected to this Somali money laundering scheme. As my guest on Saturday's show, if you haven't seen it, also from Somalia, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, but she's the polar opposite, the 180 opposite of Ilhan Omar, pointed out. The Somali communities there, the clans, they view the fraud as something they are supposed to do. Watch the episode if you have not seen it. Can we put a link to it below in the show today? And you are also deeply connected to the Muslim Brotherhood and a whole bunch of other stuff. And as a first-generation immigrant, maybe you should stop trying to change the country that allowed you to come in and make $30 million in 4 years as a public servant. Okay, but let's pause that a second, because what is all the attention about right now in Minnesota? Well, it is because of the ICE raids, and the ICE raids were to the backdrop of the fraud scheme that she is absolutely part of. But the big thing that kicked off over the last couple of days is that a male nurse by the name of Alex Pretti was killed by ICE officers, and we all saw the video. We've shown it to you many times. And interestingly, just once again, if you watch our show over the last couple of days, I kept saying, look, there's a certain level of tension on the streets. Now we know that this guy had a gun. It looked like he was going for it. They obviously are armed. Like, we just don't know exactly what was going on right before that. We know that they're blocking roads and they're putting garbage. Like, there's just such freaking chaos out there. But now it turns out, surprise, surprise, that there is video coming out of some of the things that this Alex Pretti guy has been doing over the last 2 weeks. And here's video of him about 2 weeks ago. And you tell me if this guy is just the generic, peaceful, nurse-like protester.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Pretti interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy.
Okay, so there he is 2 weeks ago. He's kicking the car. You could see he broke the taillight. He's spitting at them and everything else. They came out and they kind of got in his face for a second, but he was not arrested. He was not taken away. Now, did they likely know who he was at that point? And perhaps will we find out more on the day that he was killed? Did they know? They see him out there and like, oh, that's the same guy that, 10 days ago was attacking our cars and spitting us and everything else. Now, he should have been arrested. That guy should have been in jail. He should have never been killed because he should have been in jail. You can't attack a federal car. And again, this just goes to show how the Minnesota police themselves are in dire dereliction of their duty. ICE has been put up in an almost unwinnable situation. But now I want to shift to the media portion of this, because over the last couple of days, we've shown you some of these videos on mainstream media, they're making this guy out to be a hero. Now, I never was making him out to be a hero, and that's why I'm not shocked at all that, of course, video came out showing you what an absolute radical nutbag, violent nutbag he was, right? Well, here are Anna Navarro, Tim Walz, and Elizabeth Warren telling you how great Pretti was before that video leaked.
This is like the perfect guy. Alex Pretti is the guy you would want to date your daughter.
Agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him.
What they did was, and with Renee Good, what they did is they hit at the best of us doing activities that are at the core of what it means to be American.
Caring for people was at the core of who he was. He was incapable of causing harm. Alex carried patience, compassion, and calm.
I mean, these people are, they should be so, again, don't spray apple cider vinegar on them, but they should be mocked into oblivion. Like Anna Navarro, someone at CNN right now, CNN or over at The View, like she should be fired. And I don't mean that in like the cancel culture sense of she should be mobbed and everything else. But she has the temerity, the gall to get on that program on CNN and she knows nothing about this guy. All she knows is about the fight that left him dead when he brought a loaded gun to an ICE rally. She knows nothing about him. He's the perfect man who should date your daughter. She's literally making up a completely fabricated fairy tale about this guy that is then debunked hours later. Like, she should be fired. If that's not a fireable offense at a news organization, I guess that the View maybe isn't news, it's just a clown show. But like that you let her sit at that table, that is far more of a condemnation of you morons over at CNN than it is of Anna Navarro, who doesn't deserve anyone's respect. Tim Walz, he's the best of us. Yeah, the best of us is a guy who runs around spitting on random people and attacking federal property. And yeah, he's the best of us. And Elizabeth Warren, what was it? He's incapable. He's incapable of doing anything mean. You people have it's not that you have no idea what you're talking about. You don't even care what reality is because you are propagandists who put your ideology over truth. Perfect segue to Stephen Colbert doing quote unquote comedy.
Bavino went on complaining.
Look, Dana, they're trying to portray Border Patrol agents and ICE agents as Gestapo, Nazi, and many other words.
Yes, do not compare ICE or Border Patrol agents to the Nazis. That's an unfair comparison. The Nazis were willing to show their faces.
You know, I've mentioned this several times before, but I grew up with Holocaust survivors on both sides of my family. Let me tell you very quickly I called him my Uncle Joe. He was my Uncle Jerry, who married into the family. It was his father. And Uncle Joe was in Germany, and I knew him obviously much later in his life. He survived. Most of his family did not, and he had a tattoo on his arm, and he had to, the story is absolutely insane. I write about it in Don't Burn This Book. He had to literally give up his 3-year-old daughter at a Christian monastery and change her name. He had to confuse her at 3 years old, change her name into thinking it was Mary. I can't even remember what her original name was, but it sounded more traditionally Jewish. So that the Nazis would not kill her when he went into hiding, and he tried to reunite with her after the war. It's an absolutely insane story. I don't have full time for it right now, but I grew up around people that survived Nazis, and a lot of their family did not survive Nazis. So Colbert, you got it. A guy who isn't all the things that I'm thinking about, Stephen Colbert, right now is Tom Homan. And Tom Homan not only is doing a bang-up job for the last year for Donald Trump closing the border and everything else, he's now taking over operations in Minnesota. And here he is explaining the crazy situation that the Democrats and all of the liars and propagandists who we've shown on the show today have put ICE officers in.
I was an ICE agent. I was the first ICE director that came up through the ranks. I spent over 40 years doing this. These men and women that carry that badge and gun are American patriots. They put themselves on the line for this nation every day. But I want you to remember, they don't hang their badge, they don't hang their heart on a hook every day they come to work. They're mothers and fathers too. They're sons and daughters too. And if they've seen a fraction of the tragedies I've seen in my career, they take a lot of damage home to every day. The organization and the funding of the attacks on ICE. I'm not going to answer a lot about that because I'm not going to show our hand, but they'll be held accountable. Justice is coming.
Okay, so first off, we covered it yesterday, so I don't have to belabor the point, but they are working on a massive case as it relates to who is funding this stuff. These are paid protesters. I keep the paid placards. We found out all sorts of coordination, including with people who worked for Tim Walz in that Signal chat. So there's a lot more coming on that. But the human part of what he just said there is right. Again, these people that work for ICE, they are highly skilled. They could be working in private security for billionaires making a lot more money. They are trying to defend the country and the communities. And then they have half of the political establishment, the Democrats, who now are a wildly anti-American party trying to destroy this country. And I don't think that's even hyperbolic to say. I think it's obvious. It's obvious. They are put in a position where they don't know if some nutbag, Pretti, whatever the hell his name is going to just shoot them while they are out there trying to get a child trafficker who is illegal out of the country. That is the position the Democrats have been put in. And the ICE agents should have all of our sympathy and all of our support. And unfortunately, the Democrats are simply not going to stop with this. Let's talk about Mars Men for a second, and then we're going to shift altogether because these Trump accounts are coming out, and maybe Trump's going to do a bunch related to the economy so that November goes our way. We shall see. There's a moment a lot of men experience where something feels off. They're still functioning, still working, still getting through the day, but the drive isn't the same. Energy dips, motivation fades, focus slips, and because it happens slowly, it's easy to accept as normal. But that feeling isn't just getting older. It's what happens when men aren't supporting their bodies the way they should. That's where Mars Men comes in. Mars Men is designed to support healthy testosterone levels using studied ingredients. Some men report improvements in energy, focus, confidence, and drive. When men feel supported, it shows up everywhere in workouts, in work, and in everyday life. Mars Men is designed to work alongside a healthy lifestyle, helping men feel more like themselves again. For a limited time, listeners get 50% off for life and 3 free gifts when they use code Rubin at mengotomars.com. That's Rubin at mengotomars.com. All right, so let's shift topics altogether, talk about the economy a little bit. You may remember when I went to D.C. just a little bit before Christmas, and I did about 8 or 10 interviews, obviously mostly with Republicans, and everyone kept saying the same exact thing, which is that once the big beautiful bill kicks in, which it kicked in, basically on January 1st, 2026, that we were going to see a lot more movement in the economy, that things were going to loosen up, that hopefully interest rates would go down, that we would start seeing things that might change the narrative. Because if you remember at the end of the year, a lot of the narrative was, the economy's kind of stuck and that's going to hurt Trump and midterms, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Trump is doing a whole bunch of things on the economy side of things, including this new Trump account that the government is setting up and now going to work with all sorts of financial institutions and give you an opportunity to invest in basically your kid's life, in a young person's life, and give them a huge, huge head start if you're willing to do it. Here's Kevin O'Leary on what's going on here.
Today, there's 110 million Americans who basically have no plan for their future. They never did have a plan, and they don't know what they're going to do at retirement. This idea, the Trump account, solves that problem, or a good part of it, because you're basically making an investment not just in an individual that's born, in their family. The burden of a family to educate or help a child launch can be really difficult, particularly if you have a large one. What I love about this is it's better than Social Security. It really is. This is a way for the country to heal itself and make sure every one of its citizens has a foundation to stand on.
Okay, so there's a couple things here. First off, he mentions 110 million people have no financial plans. That's a huge problem in and of itself. And that's a much broader topic related to how horrible our education system is, and we haven't taught financial literacy and a whole bunch more. But in essence, what the Trump account is, they're going to give you, the federal government will give, and I get it's our money in the beginning, but they will give you $1,000 to put into this special account. And if you keep matching it each year, and this is when a child is born, well, the numbers are pretty damn impressive. Listen to this from Caroline Levitt.
2 stats I want to point out, if I could. I like to bring the receipts when I know the press will be in the room. 38% of Americans don't own stock, but with these Trump accounts now, every single newborn child within the years of eligibility will be invested in the stock market. Then secondly, this statistic blew me away so much, I had the fact checkers fact check it again, but it's true. As parents, if we make maximum contributions to our child's Trump account, the projected value will be nearly $1.1 million by the time they are 28 years old. That is incredible. By the time your child is 28 years old, the Trump account could earn them up to $1.1 million. I'm 28 years old right now. I wish I had a Trump account back in 1997. So this is amazing.
All right, so this is important stuff, right? So you're going to get $1,000 from the government to start this account. Before I analyze further, Caroline Levitt put this up. Bank of America will now also match $1,000 government deposits for Trump accounts. I assume that means if you're a Bank of America customer. So now there's some capitalism going on here too. So now you started with 2, that's pretty good. Now then it's on you as the parent to do the max donation into the account per year. But if you do that, if you take your child's life seriously, when they're 28 years old, they might have 1.1 million in there. And you know what? In the changing world that we're going through right now, where you probably don't need to send your kid to a 4-year school to learn how to become a Hamas supporter, if you don't do that, well, then they're not going to be in a lot of debt. Now imagine you're 28 years old and you've hopefully learned, you had parents who took care of you right and they took care of the financial planning. Maybe you didn't get into all of that debt. You got a decent job, an apprenticeship, an internship. You started doing some work. And then next thing you know, you're 28 years old, you're in a relationship, you're ready to buy a house, and there's $1.1 million. Now, inflation could be different, and maybe 1.1 then for a series of reasons will be worth let's say $700,000 of today's dollars. Who the hell knows what'll happen? But the point is, you will have a chunk of change to do something with your life. So this is the beauty of capitalism. It's the beauty of a government that actually is trying to think outside the box and do something for the people. And also getting everyone kind of interested in the stock market. Like if you're 12 years old and you're like looking at that account going, I got a little cash in there, you might actually want to learn a little bit more about that. And that would be pretty good. Now, of course, that is in stark contrast to what's happening in New York City, which is having a complete and utter takeover of the entire system by the government, mostly moron Zamboni and his socialist jihadi friends. Here he is talking about the financial crisis that New York City is about to face. And of course, he wants to raise taxes to solve it.
We are speaking about a fiscal crisis at the scale greater than the Great Recession. And so there will not be one single thing that can answer that crisis. It will require us to pursue every single avenue. That means looking inward into savings and efficiencies. That also means raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations. And it means recalibrating the relationship with the state.
What was that last part there? Recalibrating the relationship with the state? That was an interesting kind of pause there, a look down and a pause. Like basically he was like, we're gonna have to be a little more efficient. Okay, I can get on board that. A little more efficient, we can do a little bit. I don't think you can do it, actually. That's not what you people do. You don't know how to run anything. You've never been anyone that ran anything in your life. But okay, I can get on board your like crazy train on that, a little more efficient. And then we're going to raise tax on the rich. Okay, that's communism 101, and already these people are fleeing. But okay, I get why that might be something. But then, sorry, what was it one more time?
Recalibrating the relationship to the state.
Recalibrating the relationship to the state. I'm pretty sure that means that if you're rich, they're going to blindfold you, put you up against a wall, shoot you, and take your cash. We can do a fact check on that one. So anyway, while that's happening over there, Nicki Minaj, you know this chick? She's something else. Give me a couple of her songs real quick. Nicki Minaj over there. She loves Donald Trump.
I am probably the president's #1 fan. And that's not going to change. And the hate or what people have to say, it does not affect me at all. It actually motivates me to support him more. And it's going to motivate all of us to support him more. We're not going to let them get away with bullying him and, the smear campaigns. It's not going to work, okay? He has a lot of force behind him, and God is protecting him.
All right. First off, I have that jacket, and I don't know. I was told it was one of a kind, but she. Ronaldo, you lied to me. Like it all feels like a simulation. Like you've got Nicki Minaj up there with Trump and Mr. Wonderful, and it's like, okay. And I know I don't really care about what celebrities or these people think, but it does show you some sort of cultural shift that someone like her would be able to support Donald Trump sort of openly and proudly right now. When I asked Joseph for a couple of her songs, he didn't even have to Google them, so you're obviously a fan. Anaconda, I guess, is a big one. Beauty and the Beat, and I think you've given me some lyrics here. My anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hun. Well, that's pretty good. And this is from Beauty and the Beat. Buns out, Wiener. Gotta keep an eye out for Selena. Who's Selena?
Selena Gomez.
Oh, Selena. Buns out, Wiener. Gotta keep an eye out for Selena. I'm getting old. I am getting old, right? Because I don't know what it means. Oh, it's a threat to Justin Bieber because he wanted Selena's buns?
No. Nicki and Justin did a song together.
Oh, Nicki and Justin did a song together, and it was.
And Selena and him were dating.
I leave this to you guys. Grok it or something yourself. My friend Dan Bongino is back. He will officially be back next week, which I'm very excited about. Back on air, I mean. And I thought he kind of perfectly encapsulates why we must stick together right now. That what Trump has created is it is literally the last thing that can save America, and that's why it's so great that Dan will be back to help us, particularly before the midterms.
Here's the tactic. It's very simple. They use an incident like this to garner public outrage. They use their outlets to magnify public outrage. They get the doomers and the black pillars and the weak Republicans to then say, oh, look, I was a 3-time Trump voter and everything's gonna, this is nonsense. I didn't vote for this. Most of those people never voted for Trump ever. They're totally full of You either stop unlawful activity or unlawful activity metastasizes like a freaking cancer. That is it. It's either law and order or chaos. There is no on the margin there. You either enforce the law or it's total chaos. Every single little thing, if it was a hiccup, they would try to use it to discredit what was an incredible record we had and probably the best year the FBI under this administration, under any administration's ever had.
All right, so you can see why it'll be good to have him back. And he's right about there's no in between right now. That's why I keep saying, we're between an unstoppable force and an immovable object, or a rock and a hard place, whatever you want to say, because it's chaos or law and order. Trump is willing to negotiate on this. We showed you the 4 bullet points yesterday. There is a negotiation here. But Bongino is right. They want you to think everything is doomed. They want you to think everyone hates Trump. They want you to think we're on the precipice of hell, which is where they want to bring us. And if more and more of us fight together, we're going to be just fine. We really, really are. So I'm very excited to have Dan back. And we're going to try to figure out how to do maybe a live event together or at least a live show in person just to celebrate his comeback. It'll be great to have him back. Let's talk about Bub's Naturals real quick, and then we'll get to a RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A. The holidays can hit the body hard. Travel, big meals, zero routine. And the older we get, the longer it takes to bounce back. That's why this year is about more than getting back on track. It's about helping the body feel younger again. One of the biggest reasons aging can show up is collagen. Levels start declining as early as the mid-20s. And since collagen is the glue that holds everything together, that decline affects joints, recovery, skin, hair, and nails. That's where Bub's natural collagen peptides come in. Bubs helps support collagen levels closer to what the body had years ago, so joints feel stronger, recovery feels easier, and skin, hair, and nails look healthier. It's also incredibly easy to use. Mix it into coffees, smoothies, or juice. Tasteless, odorless, and dissolves instantly. Bubs was created to honor Glenn Bub Doherty, a former Navy SEAL and American hero, and it also donates 10% of all profits to charity. No junk ingredients, no sugars, no fillers. Third-party tested and trusted by over 100,000 customers. Live better longer, guys. For a limited time, you can get 20% off at bubsnaturals.com with promo code Rubin. That's bubsnaturals.com, code Rubin. All right, community Q&A, here we go. Zane says, if you couldn't live in Florida anymore for some insane reason, what other states would you consider making home? Rank the top 3. Would you live suburban or a little more rural? Oh, man. I mean, rural. I am never living in a city again. I'm never living in a big city. I have no desire. I would like to have property and land and chickens and maybe a lake to go fishing, and you will have some guns. And I'm telling you, when I disappear one day, it's going to be pretty quick. I'll let you guys know, but I'm not doing like a Kobe Bryant. I got to be celebrated 82 games in different cities and everything else. I'm going to do much more of a Tim Duncan. It's going to be like, what happened to that guy? Where'd he go? He's not returning my calls. If I had to leave Florida, America was over. But I'll do the thought game for a second. I mean, it would probably be Montana, Idaho, and maybe Utah would probably be the big 3. That's not a knock on Tennessee or Texas at all, but I think something about Montana kind of seems right. I mean, there are places where there's still huge amounts of land where you can really, you can literally live off the land and have some livestock and everything else. But yeah, and it would be When I'm gone one day. That's how it's going to be. Janine says, how stupid are we not to know how easy it must be to set up a fake business and bilk the federal government for millions of dollars? I know. Why is it that I'm always setting up real businesses and I have accountants checking numbers and I'm paying people? It's like, why? I'm like, get me some beans, get me some rice, and let's roll, man. Yeah, I know. It's like, but that's always why you gotta give these guys some cred, not for the evil, but like the fact that they can pull it, not for the fraud that they create, but that they have the gall to do it. They have some sort of skill, like they see some loophole in something, but obviously that is coming to an end. But again, if you have not seen it, I think we put the link below. Watch my episode from Saturday with Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She talks about how it is taking advantage of a system is actually built into Somali culture. So there is something different here versus if you brought a bunch of Irish people, or if you brought literally anybody from anywhere else, that there's something unique actually to the Somali community that's uncomfortable to talk about, but listen to her words, not mine. Crafty Cat says, what are some essential wardrobe items that every boy or man should own? I mean, you gotta own a couple good blazers. I was just thinking, I've been on this workout kick, my blazers are looking a little like too big or something. I gotta get my tailor on them. You gotta have a couple good blazers. I think a couple good, like just comfortable t-shirts. It's been cool in Florida the last couple of days, which has been really nice. Have some nice comfy sweatpants. I'm doing a lot of athleisure stuff lately just because if I'm not in here where I have to be dressed a certain way, just like I'm into light clothes, like light sweatpants, tank tops, things like that. But, a couple good blazers, you just need, and a nice pair of slacks, like that's pretty much it. Like you need to be able to, in a pinch, somebody says, somebody you want to impress is in town, or you got a business meeting, or a friend you haven't seen in a long time, like look the part. So a nice blazer, that's it. Simple, man. And you go to Nordstrom, little pricier than, maybe if you were going to Banana or something, but go into Nordstrom, they got all kinds of brands there. And yeah, $250, you will walk out with something nice. Olaf says, I like to eat foreign foods. Does David have a favorite recipe for bananas and rice? I'm pretty sure it's just bananas and rice, but I am glad you asked that because many of you know that David's been working on a cookbook for quite some time, and we're trying to figure out, will it be part of what I do here on the show or not? And sometimes it's great to leverage my audience. On the other hand, we're separate human beings that have different goals and things in life. But his website, which was David's cookbook for a long time, is now theonlyfood.com. He puts up recipes every week. These are all real pictures of things that he's making in our kitchen right here. That cast iron chicken parm, I am telling you, I know a lot of people say, don't put cheese in a cast iron. It will blow you away. I mean, he's got lamb recipes on there. His Caesar dressing is the best Caesar dressing you've ever had. His non-fried wings, you can see them there. Whole chicken, he's got chili recipes, and we are working on an actual physical cookbook. But if you want to jump over there and eat some of the things that we're eating, and obviously because we try to eat a certain way here and make things that are friendly and healthy for the kids, like it's mostly healthy stuff, and you'll dig it. And I don't know that he has a specific bean, banana, and rice recipe, but I'll talk to him about it. Eurasian says, how come leftists always get away with repeating falsehoods that have already been debunked, while conservatives can't even get away with telling the truth? Well, this is why you have to win the culture wars, right? This is why I showed you the Nicki Minaj thing, for however important she is or whatever. When you control the culture, in some sense, it doesn't matter what's true or not. It's why it doesn't really make sense. If you think about it this way, it doesn't really make sense that if you watch all the corporate late night comics, so you watch Kimmel, you watch Colbert, you watch Seth, whatever his name is, you watch Fallon, they're all exactly the same, right? Like their hair is just a little bit different, but they're all exactly the same. The jokes are exactly the same. The political perspective is exactly the same. And then ironically, who's number one in late night? It's Greg Gutfeld with his two writers doing a seriously sloppy show, which I absolutely love. That's not a knock on Greg. It's a great, fun, alternative show, right? But it's because the left has controlled the culture for so long that they can keep getting away with lies. It's why I said today that Anna should be fired. It's like in a sane world, there would be a network executive at CNN who would be like, all right, look, we've all got our political opinions here, and obviously we're friendlier to the Democrats than the Republicans, and we're anti-Trump and all that. But what Anna said was so profoundly over the top. It wasn't just getting the story wrong. Like she made up, as I said, it was a fairy tale about this guy. Anybody would want their daughter to date him. Well, you know what they should do? Like Here you go, Abby Phillip. If you have a shred of dignity in your body, what you might want to do next time Anna's on the show is play the clip of him kicking the ICE car, spitting at those people, scream. I think he says, "Hit me," or something. Play that for her and then ask her opinion on it. And would she want her daughter dating that guy? But you won't do that because you're in on it too. But that's why we have to win the culture. And that's why having a free, to whatever extent the internet is still free, internet is important. I want to show you something real quick, guys, before we wrap today. And there's not going to be a post-game show because I've got to get out of here right after this. I'll explain more on Monday. And our show tomorrow is a pre-tape. It's with Brigitte Gabriel, who is spectacular. If you've never seen her on the show before, she is just an utter joy. You're going to love the interview. But, you know, I've been mentioning how great the comments are, and our numbers have been phenomenal this week. Yesterday's show had about 300,000 views just on YouTube alone. The day before was about 350. That's not even including Rumble or Locals or anything else. Like, the numbers have just been crushing it. And I've been going into the comments, and you can see they're just phenomenal right now. Like, people really are appreciating what we're doing and that we're doing it a little lighter and more funny and moderate and all of those things. And I just wanted to tell you guys that I'm very appreciative of that. I don't have a ton of time to dive in every day, but Joseph does go in every day. And throughout the day, he's texting me the things that you're writing, and I really do appreciate it. So we thought I would just read one to end the show today. And this is from Mark, who wrote, "Great show, Dave. Love how you make things make sense without screaming at us. I'm awful at getting my points across clearly and speaking up, but watching how you do it makes me want to work on it." You know what? That's like as good a comment as you could possibly send to me. It really is. Like, do it. I'm just a guy. I tell you what I think. It is what it is. Some people like me, some people don't. But that's what you are too. And if you can take some of the things that you get on this show and then calmly explain that to your friends. And by the way, you know, when you're in our, let's say, political circle and you're arguing with a lefty, in some sense you default one because they're going to be more hysterical. They're going to be more emotional. They're going to be on the attack more. And if you just calmly lay out some of these things, well, you're upset that that nurse got killed by ICE in that fracas. Well, did you see that he had attacked an ICE car just a few days before? Oh, you didn't see that? Can I show you that? Can I show you that right here? There are ways to get these people out of that mind virus. It's not easy, but it is worth doing because it quite literally will save the country, and that is pretty good. All right, so as I said, no post-game show. I thank you for watching. Tomorrow's show with Brigitte Gabriel, and then I'll let you know where I'm headed on Monday. Thanks for watching, guys. Ciao.
Hello guys, I'm with my favorite president, the best president of all time.
And I'm with the Queen of Rap.